Rain pounded the New York sidewalks as Ava Reynolds rushed to work. Her phone buzzing with a bank alert. Noah's asthma medication was running out, and she had no money left to refill it. Tears stung her eyes. Another day of scraping by. Another fear for her son's future. Then she saw him. A man crumpled on the wet pavement, ankle twisted at a sickening angle. Despite the clock ticking toward disaster at her job, Ava knelt down. Who was he? And why did helping a stranger feel like the only right thing left in her crumbling world? Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Rain fell steady on the streets of New York that February morning in 2026. A soft gray curtain that blurred the edges of buildings and made every step feel heavier. Ava Reynolds walked quickly along the sidewalk near Midtown, 28 years old, fair skin flushed from the cold and hurry, shoulder-length wavy brown hair damp under the hood of her light gray trench coat. The coat was a little worn at the cuffs now, but it still kept the worst of the wet off her cream sweater and black jeans. She carried a small purse tight against her side, low brown leather boots splashing through shallow puddles. Her face held the quiet fatigue of someone who had learned to carry worry without letting it show too much. Single mother to an 8-year-old boy, she worked as an administrative assistant at Apex Tech, steady pay, health insurance that barely covered the essentials, and a supervisor who counted every minute late. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen. A bank alert, overdue balance on the medical account. Noah's albuterol inhaler refill was due soon, the message said, and the balance was already past the grace period. The cost had crept up again. Nearly $100 this time, more than she could pull from the thin emergency fund without skipping rent or groceries. Ava stopped for a second under an awning, breath visible in the chill air. She pictured Noah's small chest rising and falling too fast on bad nights, the way his eyes would search hers for reassurance. The fear settled low in her stomach, familiar now, like an old neighbor who never quite moved out. She put the phone away and kept walking. There was a department meeting at 9. Being late again would mean another warning. 3 warnings and the job was gone. The street was busy, even in the rain, umbrellas blooming like dark flowers, taxis hissing past, the low rumble of delivery bikes weaving through traffic. Then came the sound. A sharp squeal of brakes, metal scraping pavement, a muffled thud. 20 yards ahead, a man lay on the sidewalk, one leg bent wrong. His charcoal suit was soaked and smeared with grit. Papers from an open briefcase fluttered in the wind like lost birds. The delivery bike had already sped off, rider glancing back once before disappearing around the corner. Ava hesitated. The office building was only 3 blocks away. She could keep moving, pretend she had not seen. But the man tried to sit up, winced, and fell back against the brick wall. His face was pale beneath a light tan. Early 40s, perhaps, salt and pepper hair, short and neat. Clean-shaven. Tall even lying down. Broad shoulders under the tailored jacket. Something in the way he gripped his ankle. Controlled pain, no panic, made her step forward. She knelt beside him, rain dripping from her hood onto his sleeve. "Sir, can you hear me? I'm calling for help." He looked at her with clear blue eyes that held surprise and gratitude in equal measure. "I'll be all right," he said, voice low and steady despite the strain. "Just need a minute." "You can't stand on that," she answered gently. "Let me call." She dialed 911, gave the location, described the injury. While she spoke, she gathered the scattered papers, letterhead from Apex Tech, the name Benjamin. No, Ethan Caldwell, Chief Executive Officer. Her heart gave a small, startled jump. She had seen the photo in the company directory, but never in person. The CEO rarely came down from the top floors. The ambulance arrived quickly, lights cutting through the gray morning. Paramedics moved in with calm efficiency. They confirmed a broken ankle, likely clean but needing the hospital. As they prepared the stretcher, Ethan reached out and touched her wrist lightly. "Thank you," he said. "Most people walk by." Ava nodded, aware now of the time, 8:20. The meeting had started. She thought of Brandon Keller's clipped voice, the way he would look at her file and shake his head. She thought of Noah waiting for her to come home with good news. Not another worry. "I should go," she said. I hope you heal quickly, Mr. Caldwell. Ethan, he corrected, then winced as the paramedics lifted him. And would you mind staying a little longer? Just until they settle me. I hate hospitals. The request hung between them. She knew what it would cost. Her job, the insurance, the fragile balance she had kept for so long. Yet there was something in his eyes, a quiet vulnerability that did not match the powerful man she had imagined. A man who signed her paycheck, who could change everything with a word, asking for help like any other person. She climbed into the ambulance after him. The doors closed. The siren started, soft at first, then rising. Ava sat beside the stretcher, rain still dripping from her coat onto the floor. She sent a quick text to a coworker. Emergency. Running late. The reply came almost at once. A single emoji, a frowning face. She looked out the small window at the blurred city passing by. In that moment, she felt the weight of every choice she had made to survive. Every skipped meal, every late-night worry, every time she told Noah, everything will be okay, when she was not sure herself. Helping the stranger had felt right in the instant. Now the consequences were coming. But as the ambulance moved through the rain, Ava reached over and adjusted the blanket over Ethan's leg. He gave her a small nod of thanks. She did not know yet what would come next, only that she had chosen kindness when everything else said run. And somehow, in the quiet of that ride, with the city breathing around them, she felt a small, stubborn belief take root. Doing the right thing still mattered, even when the world made it hard. The hospital corridors smelled of antiseptic and old coffee, fluorescent lights humming overhead like a distant swarm. Ava sat on a hard plastic chair outside the exam room, coat folded over her lap, damp edges dripping slowly onto the linoleum. Ethan was inside now, X-rays being taken. She had stayed because he asked quietly, without demand, and because something in his voice reminded her of nights when Noah woke coughing and she stayed awake just to listen to his breathing. The clock on the wall ticked past 9:30. She thought of the meeting room at Apex Tech, the projector light flickering, Brandon Keller's sharp eyes scanning the empty seat. She had texted again, emergency at hospital, but no reply came. The silence felt heavier than the rain outside. A nurse finally wheeled Ethan out, his right leg in a fresh cast propped on a small footrest. He looked smaller in the wheelchair, the charcoal suit rumpled, but his eyes still held that steady blue calm. They say 6 weeks, he said, voice low. No surgery, thank God. Ava helped him sign the discharge papers, her hand steady even as her mind raced. She called his assistant for him. Patricia, a woman's voice answered, efficient and warm, and arranged for a car to meet them at the entrance. When the paperwork was done, Ethan looked at her again. You've given me more than an hour of your morning, he said. I won't forget it. Ava only nodded. Words felt too small for what she had just done. The ride back to the office was quiet. The town car smelled of leather and faint cologne. Ethan sat beside her, cast awkward in the space, staring out at the wet streets. Ava watched the city slide by. Umbrellas, blurred faces, life moving on without pause. She thought of Noah at school, probably drawing robots in his notebook, trusting that she would handle everything. The thought tightened her throat. She had chosen to stay with this stranger. Now the cost was coming due. At Apex Tech, the lobby felt colder than the street. Ava stepped out of the elevator on the 8th floor, coat still damp, boots leaving faint prints on the carpet. Brandon Keller waited by her desk, arms crossed, face set like stone. 46 years old, medium height, stocky build under a fitted white shirt and deep red tie, dark hair cropped short, clean-shaven. His voice carried the clipped edge of a man who had climbed by never bending. My office, now. The door closed behind them. The room was small, blinds half drawn, light falling in thin stripes across the desk. Brandon did not sit. This is the 3rd time this month, he said. Company policy is clear. Ava opened her mouth to explain, the accident, the ambulance, the CEO, but he raised a hand. I don't need excuses. Single mothers always have reasons. You're a liability, Ava. The company isn't a charity. The words landed like stones in still water. She felt heat rise in her cheeks. Not anger exactly, but something deeper, old shame mixed with fresh hurt. She thought of the nights she had worked late so Noah could have the inhaler. The mornings she smiled through exhaustion so he would not worry. Brandon slid a termination notice across the desk. "Clear your desk by noon." She stood there a moment, paper in hand, vision blurring at the edges. The room was very quiet except for the low hum of the air conditioning. She thought of the bank alert, the empty pill bottle on the kitchen counter, Noah's small hand reaching for hers when the wheezing started. Everything she had built, fragile, careful, was crumbling in this one small room. Yet beneath the ache, a strange calm settled. She had helped a man who needed it. She had chosen kindness when running would have been easier. That choice had cost her the job, the insurance, the fragile safety net, but it had not cost her what mattered most. She walked out past the sympathetic glances of coworkers, past the empty chair where she had sat for 8 months. In the elevator alone, she pressed the button for the lobby. The doors closed. The light dimmed slightly as it descended. Downstairs, rain still fell outside the glass doors. Ava stepped into it without opening her umbrella. The cold drops ran down her face, mixing with quiet tears she did not bother to wipe away. She thought of Noah waiting at after-school care, of the long bus ride home, of tomorrow and the day after. Fear was there, sharp and real. But so was something else. A small, stubborn certainty that she had done right. And in the quiet of that moment, under the gray sky, she felt a faint promise form inside her. Whatever came next, she would keep choosing the good thing, even when it hurt. She started walking toward the bus stop, coat heavy with rain, heart heavy but not broken. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains of Ava's small apartment, pale and uncertain, carrying the faint smell of yesterday's rain still clinging to the windows. Ava sat at the kitchen table, coffee gone cold in the mug, staring at the termination notice folded beside her phone. The paper felt heavier than it should. Noah had left for school an hour earlier, backpack slung over one shoulder, waving goodbye with that trusting smile that always cracked something open inside her. She had told him nothing yet, just that Mommy had a day off. The lie sat quiet in her chest. The apartment was still. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic below, the soft creak of the wooden floor when she shifted her weight. She thought of the bus ride home yesterday, rain on her face, the slow walk up the stairs with legs that felt borrowed. She thought of Noah's inhaler on the counter, half full, and the bank app she had not dared open again. Fear was a familiar guest now, but today it had brought friends. Shame, exhaustion, the small voice asking what she would tell her boy when the money ran out. The phone rang, unknown number. She answered on the third ring, voice steady from years of practice. "This is Megan Harper, executive assistant to Mr. Caldwell at Apex Tech." The woman's voice was calm, professional, with a warmth that surprised Ava. Megan, mid-30s perhaps, fair skin, medium-length straight auburn hair, always dressed in soft pastels and pencil skirts. Practical, kind-eyed, the kind of person who remembered names and birthdays without making a show of it. "Mr. Caldwell would like to see you this morning. 9 o'clock if that works for you." Ava's breath caught. She pictured Ethan in his office high above the city, cast on his leg, remembering the ambulance ride, her hand steadying the blanket. "Why?" she asked quietly. "He didn't say much," Megan replied. "Only that it was important, and that he owes you more than thanks." Ava looked around the kitchen, the chipped mugs, the stack of bills under a magnet shaped like a rocket Noah had made. She felt the pull of caution, the old habit of protecting herself from pity. What if this was obligation? What if he saw her as a charity case now? Yet something else stirred. Curiosity, maybe hope, thin as a thread but real. "I'll be there," she said. The executive elevator rose smooth and silent, wood-paneled walls catching the soft glow of recessed lights. Ava stepped out onto the top floor. The reception area was open, light pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows onto polished floors. Megan stood behind the curved desk, offering a small, genuine smile. She led Ava down a short hallway, past quiet offices, to a corner suite with a view of the river and the bridges beyond. Ethan sat behind a wide walnut desk, casted foot propped on a cushioned stool. He looked rested, though lines of fatigue lingered around his eyes. The charcoal suit was replaced by a dark sweater and slacks, simpler, more human. When he saw her, he stood carefully, leaning on the desk for balance. Ava, he said, voice low and sincere. Thank you for coming. She stood just inside the door, hands clasped in front of her. You didn't have to do this. I did. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit, please. She sat. The room smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood. Ethan looked at her steadily. I heard what happened yesterday afternoon. Brandon Keller overstepped. He had no authority to fire you, not for helping me. That was an emergency. Company policy allows discretion in cases like yours. He paused, letting the words settle. I'm sorry, truly. You lost your job because of me. Ava felt heat rise behind her eyes. Not anger, at him, but at the raw kindness in his voice. She had braced for pity, for a check or a polite dismissal. Instead, he spoke like a man who understood loss, who carried his own quiet regrets. It wasn't because of you, she said softly. I chose to stay, and I'm grateful. His gaze held hers. Not many would have. You gave me more than help that morning. You gave me dignity when I was helpless. He leaned forward slightly. I want to make this right. Not out of guilt, out of respect. Ava looked down at her hands. The room was quiet except for the faint tick of a wall clock. She thought of Noah's face that morning, the way he trusted her to fix things. She thought of the empty apartment, the bills waiting. Pride wanted to refuse, fear wanted to run, but beneath both, a small voice whispered that sometimes grace comes when you least expect it. I don't know what to say, she admitted. You don't have to say anything yet. Ethan's voice was gentle. Just know that I see you, not as a single mother with problems, but as a woman who did the right thing when it cost her. That matters to me. The words settled like warm light in the room. Ava felt something shift inside her, a loosening, small but real. Not everything was fixed, not even close, but for the first time in a long while, she felt seen. She met his eyes. I'll listen, she said. Ethan nodded, a faint smile touching his mouth. That's enough for now. Outside the windows, the city moved on. Cars crossing bridges, people walking under clearing skies. Inside, the silence held something new. Not promise exactly, but possibility. A door cracked open by kindness, waiting to be stepped through. Ava sat there a moment longer, breathing it in. Whatever came next, she would face it. And maybe, just maybe, this stranger's gratitude could become the beginning of something steady. Sunlight slanted across the walnut desk in Ethan's office, turning dust motes into quiet sparks against the dark wood. Ava sat across from him, hands folded in her lap, the same light gray trench coat draped over the back of her chair. The room held the faint scent of fresh coffee and the steady tick of the wall clock. Ethan leaned back slightly, Cass still propped, his dark sweater soft against the chair's leather. He looked at her with the same steady blue eyes from the ambulance, grateful but now thoughtful, as though weighing words he had carried for a long time. I've thought about this since yesterday, he began, voice low and measured. I don't want to offer you something out of obligation. I want to offer it because it's right. He slid a single sheet of paper across the desk. Not a formal offer yet, just a summary. Executive assistant to the CEO. Salary double what she had earned before. Flexible hours that could bend around Noah's needs. And something more. A role as liaison for Apex Foundation. A new initiative he had quietly planned for months. Scholarships, childcare subsidies, mentorship for single parents in the workforce. It's inspired by people like you, he said. By the way you stopped that morning when no one else did. By the judgment you showed when everything was against you. Ava stared at the page. The numbers blurred for a moment. She thought of the empty pill bottle on her kitchen counter, the way Noah's breathing sometimes quickened in the night. She thought of Brandon's words, liability, burden, and felt the old shame rise like a tide. But Ethan's voice pulled her back. "You're not being hired because I feel sorry for you," he continued. "You're being hired because you have what most people lose along the way. The courage to do the right thing when it costs you. That's rare. That's valuable." The room was very still. She heard her own breathing, slow and deliberate. Pride whispered to refuse. Don't take charity. Don't owe anyone. Fear whispered louder. Noah needs medicine, needs stability, needs a mother who isn't always one missed paycheck from breaking. And beneath both, a small, fragile hope stirred. She looked up at Ethan. His face held no pity, only respect, and perhaps a trace of his own quiet longing for meaning in a life built on success that had left him empty in other ways. "I don't have experience at this level," she said softly. "Executive assistant? Foundation work. I'm not sure I can—" "You have the essentials," he answered. "People skills, common crisis, integrity. The rest, schedules, protocols, reports can be learned. Megan will train you. She's been with me 12 years. She knows how I work." Ava let the silence stretch. She thought of Noah drawing robots at the kitchen table, of the way he looked at her like she could fix anything. She thought of the mornings she had left him with the sitter, promising to be home soon, knowing the overtime barely covered the inhalers. This offer was not a handout. It was recognition. It was a door opening after so many had closed. "I'll take it," she said at last, voice steady despite the tremor inside. "Thank you," Ethan nodded, a small, genuine smile breaking through. "You start tomorrow, 9 o'clock. We'll go slow. No pressure." She stood. The sunlight caught her hair, turning the brown strands gold at the edges. She reached for her coat, fingers brushing the worn cuff. As she turned toward the door, Ethan spoke again, quieter now. "Ava, one more thing. This isn't just about the job. It's about what you reminded me of that morning. That kindness still has power, even when the world says otherwise." She paused in the doorway, hand on the frame. The words settled deep like rain soaking dry earth. She did not trust herself to speak, only nodded once, then stepped into the hallway. The elevator descended smooth and silent. Ava leaned against the wood panel, eyes closed. Excitement flickered. Sharp, unfamiliar, mingled with the old worry. Tomorrow she would walk back into Apex Tech, not as the woman who had been let go, but as someone trusted, valued. The thought made her chest ache in a new way. Not pain, but possibility. When the doors opened to the lobby, she stepped out into brighter light. The rain had stopped. Puddles reflected a sky turning blue. She walked toward the street, coat over her arm, carrying the weight of yesterday and the fragile promise of tomorrow. In that quiet moment between one chapter closing and another beginning, she felt something settle inside her, a gentle certainty that grace could arrive unannounced, and that she would meet it with open hands. 3 months had passed since that rainy morning, and the city had softened into early summer warmth, the kind that carried the scent of cut grass through open windows. Ava's new apartment overlooked a quiet street in Brooklyn Heights. Sunlight poured across hardwood floors each morning, turning the rooms gold. The space was small but bright, with tall windows and a little balcony where Noah could watch birds from his telescope. The old chipped mugs had been replaced by simple white ones. The stack of bills no longer lived on the counter. A company car waited downstairs most days, black and quiet, taking her to the office without the rush of buses or the worry of being late. At Apex Foundation, she worked long hours, but they were hours that mattered. Reviewing applications from single parents, arranging childcare grants, listening to stories that echoed her own. She had helped more than 200 families already. Each approval felt like a small weight lifted from her own shoulders, yet the change was not without its quiet fears. She still woke sometimes in the night, listening for Noah's breathing, half expecting the old panic to return. In the first week of her new role, the mistakes came. A scheduling error, 2 meetings overlapping on Ethan's calendar. She had caught it too late, and the embarrassment burned. She stood in his office doorway, apology ready, hands clasped tight. Ethan looked up from his screen. Cast gone now. Only a slight limp remaining. He did not raise his voice. Instead, he stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the river. I made worse mistakes when I started, he said quietly. Lost a major client once because I forgot to follow up. Thought the world would end. He turned back to her. It didn't. And yours won't either. Ava sat. The room smelled of fresh wood polish and the faint trace of his coffee. Ethan told her then, in the slow, careful way of a man who rarely spoke of the past, about his own beginning. Parents gone when he was 19. Car accident on an icy road upstate. No inheritance, no safety net. He had worked nights at a warehouse, days at community college, building the company one small contract at a time. I learned early that failure doesn't define you, he said. What you do after it does. His voice carried no pride, only the gentle weariness of someone who had walked a long road alone. Ava listened, feeling the knot in her chest loosen. She thought of her own nights alone with Noah, the fear that she would fail him. For the first time, she saw that her struggles were not a mark of weakness, but of endurance. From there, the days settled into a rhythm. Late afternoons in the office became moments of quiet conversation. Ethan asked about Noah, his robot drawings, his love for science. Ava shared small stories, the way Noah's face lit up when she brought home a new book, the way he still slept with one hand on her arm when he was scared. Ethan listened without interruption, his eyes soft with something like recognition. In return, he spoke of his own quiet regrets. Marriages that had ended not in anger but in distance, a life built on ambition that had left little room for family. The words were not confessions, only truths shared between two people who had both known loneliness. One evening, after a long day of foundation meetings, they sat in the conference room as the sun dipped low. The table was scattered with grant proposals. The air held the faint scent of paper and cooling coffee. Ethan looked at her across the table. You're doing good work here, Ava. Not just for the families, for me. You remind me why I started all this. She met his gaze. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioning. She felt gratitude rise, warm and steady, mingled with a new confidence. The mistakes of the first week had not broken her. They had shown her she could learn, grow, belong. Outside, the city lights began to flicker on. Ava gathered her things, coat over her arm. She paused at the door. Thank you, she said simply, for seeing me. Ethan smiled, small and real. You made it easy. She walked to the elevator, the hallway lights soft on the carpet. Downstairs, the car waited. As she slid into the back seat, she thought of Noah waiting at home, probably building another cardboard invention. She thought of the families she had helped, the ones still waiting. The old fear had not vanished entirely. It never did. But it had grown quieter, edged aside by something stronger. The belief that kindness, given freely, could return in unexpected ways. In the gathering dusk, Ava leaned her head against the window and let the city lights blur past. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she was no longer walking alone. Rain had returned to the city that afternoon, a soft patter against the office windows, turning the skyline into a blurred watercolor of grays and silvers. Ava was in the conference room, sorting foundation proposals when she heard the voices down the hall. Megan's tone was neutral, professional as always. She's here to see you, Mr. Caldwell. Unscheduled. Ethan's reply was low, surprised. Send her in. Ava paused, pen in hand, the wood of the table cool under her fingers. Footsteps approached, sharp heels on carpet. The door to Ethan's office opened, closed. Silence for a moment, then a woman's voice, cool and polished. Isabella Grant stepped into view through the glass wall, though she did not see Ava. 41 years old, tall and slim, sleek blonde hair in a low bun, fair skin, dressed in a tailored black pantsuit with a white silk blouse, minimal gold jewelry glinting under the lights. Her voice carried the confidence of someone used to winning arguments in courtrooms. Ambitious, calculated, a prominent lawyer who had left Ethan 3 years ago for opportunities in London, prioritizing career over the quiet life he wanted. The conversation drifted in fragments. Isabella's words, I'm back in New York permanently. The firm's opening a branch. The reasons we separated, they don't apply anymore. Ethan's response was even, but Ava heard the tension underneath. Things have changed for me too, Isabella. Ava felt her chest tighten. She gathered her papers quietly, slipped out to her desk. The rain tapped steadily. She thought of the evenings she and Ethan had shared. Simple talks over coffee. His laughter soft when she told stories of Noah. Now this woman, elegant and accomplished, stood in his office offering to rebuild what had been broken. Ava looked at her own reflection in the darkened window. Brown hair tied back, simple blouse and skirt, the subtle weariness in her eyes from nights watching over a sick child. She felt small, out of place, like an intruder in a story not meant for her. The avoidance began small. She took lunch at her desk the next day claiming deadlines, emails instead of face-to-face updates. Ethan noticed. Ava saw it in his glance across the room, the way he paused before leaving each evening, but she could not face him. Jealousy was new to her, sharp as a hidden thorn. She thought of Isabella's poise, her shared history with Ethan, elite schools, boardrooms, a life without the mess of inhalers and late bills. Ava's own past felt heavy. The husband who left when Noah was 3, the years scraping by, the quiet pride in surviving alone. Now with Ethan, something warmer had grown, friendship edging toward more, unspoken but real. Yet Isabella's return stirred old doubts. Was Ava enough? Or was she just the woman who had helped him once, a temporary light in his world? That night, the storm worsened. Thunder rumbled low as Ava tucked Noah into bed. He looked small under the covers, 8 years old, fair skin flushed, short tousled brown hair damp from bath. His breathing was steady then. But hours later, she woke to the sound, harsh wheezing, his small hands clutching the sheets. "Mom!" he gasped, eyes wide with fear. Ava held him, administered the emergency inhaler, but it was not enough. The attack was severe this time. At the hospital, the doctor spoke gently. New medication needed, stronger, more expensive. Nearly $500 a month, not covered fully yet. Ava nodded, throat tight, as Noah slept beside her in the dim room. The rain lashed the window. She thought of Ethan then. Not as boss, but as the man who listened, who cared. The avoidance felt foolish now. Her feelings for him were real, deep as roots, but so was the fear of losing the stability she had found, of Noah suffering if things fell apart again. Dawn came, light filtering gray through the curtains. Ava sat by Noah's bed, his hand in hers, breath even now. The crisis had passed, but it had cracked something open inside her. She could not run from what she felt. Not anymore. Isabella's shadow was there, yes. Elegant, persistent, but Ava's life was her own, built on quiet strength, on choices made from the heart. She would face Ethan. She would speak her truth. The rain eased to a drizzle. Outside, the world woke slowly. Ava closed her eyes, holding Noah's hand. Whatever came, she would meet it with the same kindness that had started everything. And in that, she found a gentle promise. Love, if true, would find its way through the storm. The Grand Meridian Ballroom glowed under soft chandeliers that night, candlelight flickering across white tablecloths and the quiet murmur of voices rising like gentle waves. Ava stood at the podium, midnight blue gown catching the light in subtle silver threads. Her brown hair swept back simply, exposing the delicate line of her neck. The room held nearly 400 people. Donors, executives, families the foundation had helped. Faces turned toward her in expectant silence. She had rehearsed the words for weeks, yet now they felt too small for what she carried. Her hands rested lightly on the lectern, steady despite the faint tremor inside. She began quietly. 3 years ago, I was a single mother counting every dollar for my son's medicine. One rainy morning, I stopped to help a stranger. That choice cost me my job. But it also reminded me that kindness still has a place, even when the world seems to say otherwise. Her voice held steady, soft but clear. She spoke of Noah's nights of wheezing, of the fear that woke her before dawn, of the small victories, grant approvals that meant another family could breathe easier. The room listened. No one moved. When she finished, applause rose slowly, then swelled. Warm, genuine, a few people standing. Tears shimmered in more than one pair of eyes. Ava stepped back, heart full, the weight of her own story lighter for having shared it. Ethan waited near the side curtain, tuxedo sharp against the dim glow. Walking stick, now only a quiet companion. He had watched her from the shadows, pride and something deeper in his gaze. As the applause faded, he stepped forward. The room hushed again. He took the microphone, voice low but carrying to every corner. Ava has given this foundation its heart, he said. But she has given me something more. He looked at her directly. Months ago, I spoke with Noah. I asked if he would mind if I spent more time with his mother. He said yes, as long as I didn't make her cry like his dad once did. A soft laugh rippled through the crowd, tender. Ethan continued, eyes never leaving Ava. I've fallen in love with you, Ava. Not because you helped me that morning, though I'll always be grateful. Because of who you are, your strength, your kindness, the way you fight quietly for what matters. The words hung in the air. Ava felt her breath catch. Isabella had been there earlier, elegant in black, standing at the edge of the room like a shadow from another life. She had left quietly during the applause, but her presence lingered in Ava's mind, a reminder of doubt, of comparison. Yet now, under the lights, with hundreds of eyes on them, Ethan's confession felt like a bridge over every fear. Ava stepped forward. Her eyes met his. The room seemed to fade. The chandeliers, the tables, the soft clink of glasses. Only his face remained, steady and open. I was afraid, she said, voice barely above a whisper at first, then stronger. Afraid I wasn't enough. Afraid of losing what I've built for Noah. But you've shown me something different. You've shown me grace. She paused, the silence around them thick with waiting. I love you too, Ethan. The room exhaled. Applause broke again, warmer this time, laced with quiet cheers. Ethan reached for her hand. His fingers closed around hers. Warm, sure. Ava felt the last barrier inside her give way, not with a crash, but with a gentle release. The doubts that had shadowed her for months dissolved in that touch. She thought of Noah at home with the sitter, safe and sleeping. She thought of the families the foundation would help tomorrow. She thought of the rainy morning that had started it all. Everything led here. They stood together as the music began, a slow waltz filling the space. Ethan drew her close, his hand at the small of her back. The light softened further. Ava rested her head against his shoulder for a moment, breathing in the faint scent of his cologne mixed with the night air drifting through open doors. In that quiet embrace, amid the gentle turning of the dance floor, Ava felt a promise settle deep within her. Love, when it arrives through kindness, is worth every step of the journey. And she would walk it with him. No longer alone. Snow fell gently outside the windows of the new condo that winter. Soft flakes catching the streetlight and turning the Brooklyn street into a quiet, glowing world. Ava stood in the kitchen, stirring cocoa on the stove, the rich scent filling the air. Noah sat at the island counter, legs swinging, drawing blueprints for a robot that could help people breathe better. Ethan leaned against the doorway, sleeves rolled up, watching them both with the easy contentment of a man who had finally found his place. The cast was long gone. Only a faint scar remained on his ankle, a reminder of the morning that changed everything. He had been there through the hard days, quietly paying the new medication costs until insurance caught up, sitting with Noah during checkups, never making it feel like charity. Ava had protested at first, pride sharp, but Ethan had spoken simply. Let me help. You've given me more than you know. Now the apartment held traces of all three. Ethan's books on the shelf, Noah's drawings taped to the fridge, Ava's quiet laughter more frequent. Their relationship had begun slowly. Evenings of shared dinners and walks in the snow, hands finding each other without hurry. Love had arrived not as a storm, but as a steady warmth that grew with time. One Saturday morning, the three of them drove to a community center in Queens. The Apex Foundation had organized a small event, boxes of school supplies, winter coats, and asthma kits for families in need. Ava had suggested they go together, not as sponsors, but as participants. Ethan agreed without hesitation. Noah carried a small box of inhalers, proud to be helping like Mom does. The center smelled of fresh coffee and cardboard. Families waited in line, faces tired but hopeful. Ava knelt beside a young mother, late 20s, dark circles under her eyes, holding a toddler on her hip. The woman's name was Maria. She spoke softly about her son's recent diagnosis, the fear of costs, the night she stayed awake listening to his breathing. Ava listened, hand on Maria's arm, remembering her own nights. She handed over the kit, explaining how to use it, how the foundation could help with refills. Maria's eyes filled. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't know people still cared like this." Ethan stood nearby, helping Noah pass out coats to older children. He watched Ava with quiet pride. Later, as they loaded the last boxes, Noah tugged Ethan's sleeve. "Mom used to worry a lot," he said matter-of-factly. "Now she smiles more. Because of you." Ethan knelt to Noah's level, voice low. "Because of her, too. She's the strongest person I know." Ava overheard, felt her throat tighten. She thought of the rainy morning, her hesitation, the choice to stop, the way one small act had rippled outward. It had brought her here. A home filled with light. A son who breathed easier. A man who loved her without asking her to be anything more than herself. The doubts that once shadowed her had faded, replaced by a gentle certainty. They drove home as snow thickened, the city lights blurred through the windshield. Noah fell asleep in the back seat, coat still on. Ethan reached for Ava's hand across the console. She laced her fingers through his, feeling the warmth of his palm. The radio played softly, an old song about home and second chances. Ava looked out at the falling snow, flakes catching on the glass like tiny promises. She thought of Maria's grateful eyes, of the family still waiting, of the foundation growing because of what had begun with a single act of kindness. Everything connected now. The pain of the past, the joy of the present, the quiet hope for tomorrow. In the stillness of the car, with Noah's soft breathing behind them, Ava turned to Ethan. "I never thought one morning could change so much," she said quietly. "But it did. For me, for us, and now for others." Ethan squeezed her hand. "Kindness doesn't end. It keeps going. Like us." She rested her head against the seat, eyes on the snow. The road ahead stretched quiet and white. Whatever storms might come, she knew they would face them together. And in that knowledge, she found the deepest peace she had ever known. The belief that doing the right thing, even when it hurts, always returns in ways we cannot imagine, bringing healing, love, and the simple beauty of lives made better by one another. As the snow falls softly outside your window tonight, remember, kindness never fades. In the quiet hours when loneliness whispers, when old aches remind you of years gone by, or illness dims the light, know that one small act of love, like Ava's on that rainy morning, can ripple through lives, including yours. You are never truly alone. Your story still matters. Your heart still heals others. Reach out, share a kind word, call a friend. And if this tale touched you, leave a comment below. Share it with someone who needs hope. And subscribe for more stories of grace. May the Lord wrap you in peace, ease your burdens, and bless your health with gentle strength. You are loved. Good night, dear friend.